I sort of go back to something my dad told me when I was a younger person. He said, son, experience is what you get when you don't get what you want. So I always tell people, got a lot of experience. I'm American, but usually people think I'm Canadian because I'm nice, but I'm not that nice. I don't like those things about go out and break things and move fast. You want to succeed, right? You want to solve someone's problem and get their money. I was in the Silicon Valley during the crash, and the first things to fail were bad ideas, bad people, right? They just went quickly. But the next thing to fail was bad people, good ideas. That failed before bad ideas, good people. Then you had good ideas and good people that just failed because there was no market, there was no willingness, there was no capital. I worked at a company called Taligent, which was a huge joint venture between IBM, Apple, and Hewlett-Packard in the Valley, 300 employees. We had a CEO who was a big wig from IBM, and things weren't going that well. They ended up forcing him out, and they put another guy in charge. So people were like, oh, they fired the CEO, but things are back on track, and now we're going. And that new CEO was jogging one day, had a heart attack, and died. We came into work, and they're like, okay, there's going to be a company announcement. And that ended up killing the company because the investors weren't actually willing to go forward given that earlier leadership problem and then this guy dying. So it was a very sad thing. But one thing that I always take with me on that is at the memorial service for our new CEO, when they asked if people had things to say, the former CEO walked right up to the front, first guy, and said wonderful things about this person who he knew but not that well. Someone who had been, by all accounts, a failure at that job in the view of all the people. And I just thought that was like the classiest thing I'd ever seen. It can really affect you when these failures happen that you feel like you should have been able to prevent, fail for non-technical, non-market reasons. Those are hard. Got involved in another startup here, and it was probably the best thing that I'd ever done. We had a great team of people that I knew for a while, and we were doing really well. And that business ended horribly. Personality issues, and the investors are suing. I made a bunch of mistakes in terms of trusting people and not setting up ownership properly. I was probably depressed about that for a year and didn't really appreciate the effect that it had on my psyche and my willingness to get out of bed and go to work. But trying to find a job then at 50 plus was a difficult task. I found I didn't really trust anybody, right? After what had happened to me, I was calling people going, do you know this person? Do you know that person? What are they like? And anything negative was just sort of, I don't want to work there. A person I worked with here in town was starting a company, Dispatch Integration, and he's like, well, come and help us do this. A group of people that I liked and I trusted, was able to get enough work from them to pay the bills and keep going until they were able to start paying me full time. And now it's growing again, and we've got 15 people, and it's a different kind of startup in the sense that we do a lot of services work and we're bootstrapping the company rather than taking investment. People who say they're an entrepreneur, I'm not sure I buy into that. I don't believe it's something you can really teach. So I think there is an inherent aspect of personality types that succeed in situations where others don't. And I tend to relate that to risk. So if you're a wealthy individual or you come from a wealthy family and you bet 4% of your fortune, you're not an entrepreneur, right? You're just a rich person starting a company. Nothing wrong with that, it's just a different thing. 10 years ago, I started working with Communitech and mentoring startups, and I used to try and tell people, well, you should do this, you should do this, but that's not how people learn. You have to go, these are the things that I think are going to kill you, whether it's this kind of customer or this technology hurdle. Try and solve that first. If you fail at that, shut it down. Sometimes it's just experience and knowing what not to do next time. So as Clint Eastwood once said, a man's got to know his limitations.